Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports That back into the video today, and today we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans roster moves. Let's get a little bit of a free agency recap. Free agency hasn't even started yet, but the Houston Texans still made 4 roster moves today, and I'm here to talk about them. Now, all 4 of these moves that were made by the Houston Texans today, these are all about the defense. Now, 2 of these players that are defensive players do make an impact for the Houston Texans on special teams. Let's get into it. So I'm gonna name the 4 players really fast of who these players are, and then slowly I'm gonna go over one by one on what these players did for the Texans in 2023 and what I think about the signing. So here are the players that were re-signed by the Texans today: Chris Boyd, Desmond King II, Eric Murray, and Khalil Davis. Now, keep in mind, Desmond King is the only player out of these signings that we know how much money he's being paid. He's getting a 1-year, $2.2 million contract. Now, what we know about the rest of these contracts are these are all 1-year deals. So that's it. These guys are being brought back for the 2024 season. They will be free agents next year unless an extension is signed before next free agency in 2025. So let's start off with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd was a late addition for the Houston Texans in 2023. He only played 2 games for the Texans. Well, 4 if you include the playoffs. So, 2023, 2 games, and literally did nothing. In the regular season, had 0 tackles, but 75% of his snaps was on special teams. So where he was playing was on special teams. That's where he made an impact. But in the playoffs, he did play 2 games, both games in the playoffs, and in the playoffs he had 3 tackles. So they really didn't do much, but was more on special teams than he was defensively. 3% of his snaps were defensively. So he was only in 3% of snaps. Then let's get to Desmond King II. Desmond King II. Weird about him is that he was with the Texans in 2021, 2022, if everybody recalls, and he was on the Texans roster going to preseason training camp. He doesn't make the roster. He gets cut. He was a really, really, really surprising roster cut. He goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers almost pick him up instantly. He really struggles there. 3 games played, literally 0 tackles, didn't do anything. Struggles and gets injured. They cut him. He joins the Texans, comes back to the Texans. He plays 7 games, 3 starts with the Texans, and has 1 fumble with 2 passes deflected, 1 sack, 47 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. Seasons before that with the Texans, 17 games, 13 starts, 2 interceptions, and 30 yards returned in 2022 with 8 passes deflected, 1 fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, returned for 20 yards, and 89 tackles with 10 tackles for loss in 2022. Now, in the playoffs of the Texans, in the 2 games in the playoffs, he started both games in the playoffs. He started both games in the playoffs. 2 games, 2 starts. He had 1 interception with 17 tackles and 2 tackles for loss with 5 assisted tackles and 1 QB hit. So that wraps up Desmond King. And then let's get to Eric Murray. Eric Murray only played a total of 6 games for the Texans in 2023. And in those 6 games, he started in 4 of them with 1 forced fumble, 13 tackles, and that was it for Eric Murray. Eric Murray's been with the Texans since 2020, and really his best year with the Texans was in 2020 when he played starting all 14 games he played in, 14 games, 14 starts, had 2 sacks, 71 tackles, and 1 forced fumble with 2 pass deflected. And then for the final player is Khalil Davis. I'm a big fan of Khalil Davis. Now, Davis, he was a guy who, going in his 3rd season with the Texans, he won a Super Bowl in his rookie year with the Buccaneers, but only played 2 games. He was a guy who was outside looking in preseason and training camp, and he was a guy that I actually questioned him making the practice squad. And if, for him to play 15 games in 1 start with the impact he made for the Texans at the end of the season, for a guy who'd only played 3 games in the prior 2 seasons, and also, you doubted that he was gonna. I doubted. I think a lot of other Texans fans doubted that he'd make that he would end up making the practice squad. I mean, obviously, once preseason came and he started to look good in preseason and training camp, I think a lot of Texans fans, at least me, I kind of thought, okay, yeah, he's good enough to make the practice squad. But there was doubt opening there, and he's a beast. 15 games, 1 start, 2 passes deflected, 1 forced fumble, 2 sacks, 32 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. The playoffs, he played 2 games, and in those 2 games, he had 6 tackles for 1 tackle for loss. So, yeah, that's it for this free agency recap for the Texans. Let me know your thoughts on the 4 players that I just talked about being re-signed for the Texans. And that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.